Back when Resident Evil 3 Remake came out, shortly after, they got a free game as a bonus known as Resident Evil Resistance. The game is not that popular, but it does actually have a big fanbase still. Well, big for a free game you got with another game at least. I do think it's also very weird that they chose an asymmetrical horror game of all things, when a year later, Resident Evil got into Dead by Daylight, the biggest asymmetrical horror game of all time. Also, fun fact, they actually reference Resident Evil Resistance in Dead by Daylight because the killer codename for Wesker is the Mastermind, and killers in Resistance are considered masterminds. When Resident Evil Village released in said year of Dead by Daylight, adding Resident Evil, that year being 2021, also the 25th anniversary for the series, they planned on doing the same kind of bonus game idea they had with 3 Remake. This game being Resident Evil RE-verse. Okay, wait, that name is fucking stupid. Resident Evil RE-verse. The RE stands for Resident Evil, so technically the title is Resident Evil-verse. That's like calling the next Mario Kart Racing, or us finally getting Mario Galaxy 3 and they call it Mario Galaxy 3 in space. It's redundant and sounds dumb. The game is now in permanent server closure because quote-unquote, it was to celebrate the 25th anniversary and we think the celebration period is over. Ah yes, 2.5 years as a celebration period for the 25th anniversary, and the game released in 2022, which means it wasn't even released in the anniversary year the game is claimed to be celebrating. Also, I just thought about it while editing. Overwhelming support? I don't think I've seen a single person say this game is good online. Okay, yeah. I mean, the game was delayed, but over a year worth? At that point, it's definitely not an anniversary game anymore. Although, to be fair, that definitely was never the intention of this game. Also, the game still feels super rushed and unpolished despite all of that. The real answer the game closed down forever is because it sucks and definitely hit a player count of under 100 players on all platforms combined in its prime minus the first month or two. In fact, this isn't as much of a celebration of anything as it is a Happy Meal toy you got with your main meal, which of course was the Happy Meal that was Resident Evil 8. Honest to God though, Resident Evil RE-verse isn't the worst thing I've ever played, and there is a few things I liked, and kills can be satisfying at times, and the finisher animations to certain kills are pretty cool visually. Also, this render of all the characters is fucking awesome. Why was Resident Evil RE-verse such a disaster? To find out, let's dive deep into the controller and play Resident Evil RE-verse. Resident Evil RE-verse's basic rundown is like this. You get points for kills, but when you die, you turn into a Resident Evil monster with a health bar that's much larger than a human's, but will slowly drain over time. What determines what you will turn into comes down to how many of these purple vials you collect. 0 will turn you into a fat molded from 7, 1 can turn you into either Jack Baker from 7, a hunter from 3 Remake, or a Lycan from Village, and 2 purple vials will turn you into either Tyrant or Nemesis from 2 and 3 respectively. For each tier, what character you turn into is entirely random and you have no choice on which one you become. This is already missed opportunity because a feature to have some sort of build for certain characters you want to play as would be cool, even if it was just you picking which character you want for each tier before you go into a match. The main reasons being, of course, that A, people can then pick what characters they want to bring in for each tier if they have preferences gameplay-wise, and also for new players they are going to want to try out certain characters before others. I mean, you can do it with heroes, why not villains too, right? I should also mention the fact that when you die you have this melting transformation thing which kind of looks like a molded melting, so I think the implication is you're never actually playing as these characters, only molded taking the forms of them. Going back to the monsters a second, that's a total of 6. That's it. In the whole RE-verse, as a game in a franchise known for all its monstrous creations, they only added 6 monsters. Capcom. So, you guys say this was a 25th year anniversary game celebrating the franchise, and you could only come up with 6 villains, not any of the main villains from 8, you know, the game this is a bonus to in the first place, not Marguerite or Lucas from 7, nothing from Resident Evil 1 or 4, like Lord Sadler or the Tyrant from 1, No other characters like a Licker, Giant Spider, Yawn the Giant Snake, Zombie Dogs, Birkin, who by the way was in Resistance. Oh, and what about Albert Wesker for Christ's sake? Ironically, he was in Dead by Daylight before this game even came out in October of 2022. I should also mention that not only is the game unpolished as hell and nobody was gonna buy Village just for this game, but because of that, this game basically made no money because again, no one was buying Village for this thing. The only money this actually made would have been through buying microtransactions, but who was buying microtransactions for Resident Evil RE-verse? The player count was obviously low at all times, but the all-time peak on Steam was only 2,000 players. So if people did spend money on this game, it can't have been a lot of people surely. For a wider understanding, across all systems, Resident Evil Village sold 11 million copies, and that means that 11 million people had access to this game. Out of all of those people, how is the peak only 2,000 players? Irrelevancy, and if that's not a sign of irrelevancy, I don't know what is. I mean, I don't know if the cloud version on Switch counts towards this 11 million, or if that even has RE-verse, but if so, I guess, the game only sold 10,999,996 copies, but that's not the point I'm trying to make here. My point is that several millions of people own this game, but not only did most of the people just not play it often, but a whole lot more probably never tried it. In fact, unless you're on Steam, you don't get notified that this game was added to your library when you buy the game. So yeah, possibly half of the people who have this game probably don't know they even have it to begin with. In fact, for me to find it, I had to not only ask online, but then I had to dig deep through my PlayStation library to actually find it. It's almost like I'm an archaeologist, but instead of finding a golden idol and a 5-movie deal, I got a boulder made out of newspaper and duct tape. Hey, wait a minute, why wasn't it just a mode in Village's application itself? Why did it have to be a separate app? It's not like it would have messed with the Platinum Trophy at all, because, it's DLC technically at that point. Even if it's free, it would just be added in a separate trophy list. I actually do have a theory on why certain characters and maps were chosen, and it's pretty obvious when you think about it. I noticed that every single character and map is from the modern games, 7, 3, 2, and Village. That's for one simple reason. They didn't care, and it would be easiest to model and animate these things rather than remaking stuff from Resident Evil 1, 4, etc. If this wasn't the case, they could have done a lot more, and let's be honest, Resident Evil has such a huge cast of both heroes and villains to pick from. And maps too, might I add. Speaking of maps, RE-verse only has 3 and the game only launched with 2. The game launched with 2 maps being RPD and the Baker House, and we later got the Village from Resident Evil Village, even though RE-verse is a game that was made for the sake of being a bonus to Resident Evil Village, yet the bonus map that we got was the Village itself, and that wasn't available day one. Does that not sound dumb at all? Speaking of, the Village doesn't even have a name, so I'm gonna call it Piss on Toast. I could say how there's so many great maps from other games, like Spencer Mansion or Valdelobos, but like I said, they only took stuff from the modern games because that would be easiest to add. Hey, wait a minute, the tutorial was set in an outside area in Raccoon City, why wasn't that a map? Oh, and how's the hero roster, by the way? We haven't even talked about those guys yet, we talked about all the monsters, but not the heroes. It's actually pretty decent, with an asterisk. You know, like that one overhyped Marvel movie everyone loves with the $20 cereal box. The cast we got at launch was Jill, Chris, Leon, Claire, okay, that's fair. Ada, okay, again, makes sense. Hunk? Weird choice, but I like it, stands out. And that was it, they didn't screw it up. But then we had to get extra characters, which may sound like a good thing as, oh, it's free, but it's the choices that are the problem. I mean, who could we possibly get? Shiva, Barry, Carlos, or hell, maybe a playable character who isn't from a remake like Ethan Winters. There is so many. What about these 6 generic Call of Duty wannabes from Village who all look indistinguishable from each other and basically fully identical in every way? No? You don't want them? Well, too bad. You get them. Fellas, Rainbow Six Siege is the other way. Genuine question here. Who saw Umbra Eyes and Tundra Wolf and was like, well, it's about time? Well, I'll tell you who. Someone probably. Whoever that person is, though, let me ask you something. Is your favourite pastime vacuuming? Is your name John Smith or Ben Brown? Because you are one very boring and odd person. It's quite scary, actually. If RE-verse wanted to be really wild, we could have got Frank West. You know, the protagonist from another zombie game Capcom owns. It may sound dumb to some people, but it's better than Lobo. And to anyone who does still want to complain, we don't need Lobo, we already got Lobo 4 Lobos ago. I just had a funny idea of, in my future videos, what if I just end up obsessively hating over Lobo specifically for no reason? Also, when writing the script, up until the final check through of everything, I could only remember Umber Eyes and Lobo and not any of the other names for these guys without looking it up. If that doesn't tell you how important these guys are, nothing will. Also, if you look up the roster and find it on the site for Resident Evil officially, it doesn't have the updated roster. It literally only has the base 6. I'm sorry, but that's just funny. Oh, and fun fact, by the way, these extra guys got Tom Clancy skins, but when I recorded for the video a few months back, they were gone. And my guess is the fact that because the game is getting destroyed, the license skins were revoked. Oh, but now these guys don't have any skins for you to buy. Womp womp. I would also say how this collaboration is kinda dumb with Rainbow Six, but my Dead by Daylight main is literally the one Rainbow Six Siege character, even though I've never really played Rainbow Six, I just think Tubereo looks cool. Speaking of skins, there's a few cool ones like the Nemesis that's always on fire, but these are so lame and lazy for the most part, like holy crap. Like, for Leon you'd think, oh, they could add the jacket from Resident Evil 4 or something. Well, no, they just chose the classic RPD uniform, the one you get in 2 Remake as the default skin, and Leon's jacket in 2 Remake's opening. And when there was his Resident Evil 6 jacket, it's not actually Resident Evil 6 Leon, it's just Resident Evil 2 Leon with Resident Evil 6 Leon's jacket. Also, as I'm recording, I just thought of this. Imagine someone trying to take a shot every time I say Village or Resident Evil in this video. But yeah, the roster is not a celebration of anything. And it's so weird because there's so many characters that would have been cool like Carlos, but nope. Would adding Louise really kill Capcom? Is adding Ashley Graham just crossing a line that bad? So, when you've picked your character, you will run around killing people and looking for vials. Which, by the way, one of the 6 Tom Clancy characters can just make fake ones off just because. Another frustrating fact, if you get knocked down, you are dead and don't think you'll get a chance to get back up again because you won't. This game's stun locking from certain attacks is so bad that you're defenseless and easy pickings with no chance to combat that. Getting in one of these animations guarantees a free flight to heaven via Ryanair, and like Ryanair, it's uncomfortable, gives you very little legroom, and the people behind this whole thing don't respect you, your money, or your time. If you're expecting to stay in your human form for too long, you're not gonna like this, but you're screwed. Especially if you get ganged upon by several characters at once, because that's quite unlucky. But I mean, at the same time, playing this game in general is quite unlucky. If you often do last stages without dying in this game, that means you must be good, and if you're good, I could congratulate you, but that means the game you spent so long on getting good at is a janky mess that's now gone forever, so I'm gonna laugh instead. Haha. Okay, all jokes aside, if you did enjoy this game and you can't play it anymore, I do feel bad, but the majority definitely don't like it. Wait, how did Resident Evil 5 on the PS3's online outlive this and Multiversus? Coincidentally, I can also get into connected matches with RE5 way quicker than this game on PS5. And the load times are shorter on the PS3 port of Resident Evil 5. As for the character abilities, they are mostly decent, and they mostly fit their character. Nothing more, that's fine I guess. Leon has his dual guns and roundhouse kick from Family Guy, and not Resident Evil 4 because there's nothing Resident Evil 4 in this game, which means it didn't happen canonically. Anyone who calls me a liar is wrong because Resident Evil RE-verse told me so and it's dead now. Jill has a mind, Chris gets briefing and a boulder punch with Joe Baker's gauntlet from that one Resident Evil 7 DLC. Oh, and Hunk has invisibility now, just because I guess. But don't worry, to anyone who thinks it'll be overpowered, the invisibility doesn't actually work. Not as invisibility at least anyway. You see, while being quote-unquote invisible, hitting another player with the knife does double damage. Maybe Hunk should have been a skin for frickin' Wraith instead of Legion in Dead by Daylight. There is also upgrades you can get, upgrade, and equip to your characters. Some even affecting the monster transformation, but no upgrades for specific monsters, which I do kind of get as, you know, you can't pick which ones you turn into before a match starts. Okay, seriously, why isn't that a feature? But hey, at least they have a feature to pick your own region if you live in North America. If not, yeah, what do you want me to say here? But hey, by the low player count, at least there's no technical issues at all, and the games are fully stable and there's no lag. Yeah, no, the lag's pretty bad in this game. The game's also crashed on me a few times, which of course is not good, and one time actually crashed my entire PS5. If only people played this game enough for it to be fixed. The game also has an MMR system, but it's as functional as a twig. You see, the game will search for players in your MMR, but when it can't find people in your MMR because there's not a lot of people playing this game, it will search for players of any MMR, meaning one player will be stomping the other 5 repeatedly because you got the one person in your country. Oh wait a minute, there's no region thing, so the country thing don't matter. There will be one person who somehow played thousands of hours on this game for some reason, stomping the rest of you guys. Also, why is there a paid battle pass? Who bought the Resident Evil RE-verse battle pass? Someone out there had to. Wait, why is there a comic book filter? It's so weak and hard to notice that when you do focus in and see it properly, it's really cheap looking. In conclusion, I do not recommend picking up a controller and playing Resident Evil RE-verse. Not that you can because the servers are dead in the water. Just play Dead by Daylight and you'll be fine, honestly. And if this screenshot from the day before the servers closed doesn't show my feelings on this game, nothing will. Wait, hold on, if I go to view product, it says RE-verse is coming soon? More like came and went and nothing was lost. I actually did want to do this video for a long time, and with the shutdown date announced, I knew I had to do it. Maybe when Resistance gets a shutdown date, I could cover that game as well. I mean, would you guys like to see a Resident Evil Resistance video?